Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. Hopefully, everyone had a chance to try some of our gaming trivia. All this time, I played Pac-Man and had no idea where the design came from. So, we have an exciting topic for today with our panel of experts. My name is Vivian, and I am joining us live from New York. We want to start by asking our audience to put in the chat where they're tuning in from. Today, we'll be talking about monetizing and advancing the value of your intellectual property in the digital gaming industry. Our LinkedIn Live is hosted today by Quest and Fidel. I'll be our moderator for today. I'm part of the Quest team and specialize in IP and rights management. We'll be exploring how a proper rights management system can grow your brands and your business. Over the years, I've worked with many clients who are looking to tap into unexploited IP and rights and achieve those improvements to their business process and technology for their end-to-end rights ecosystem. I want to remind our audience to drop your questions in the comment section. We'll be sure to answer those at the end. And now let's meet our panelists for today.
Hello, everyone who has tuned in, and welcome to this live LinkedIn event. I'm absolutely thrilled to be part of this panel discussion today alongside Quest, a trusted partner of Fidel. My name is Karen Correa. In my role as practice director for Fidel Professional Services, I lead a dedicated team of professionals. Our focus is on providing top-notch consulting and services support to clients seeking to implement Fidel's intellectual property management system. Today, I'm very excited to share some insights on how we've helped clients achieve IP protection and monetization of their IP.
Great, thank you, Karen. Next up, we have JD.
Hey everyone, JD Forrest on here. About 10 years of experience working within the intellectual property space. And probably close to 30 years, I'd say at this point, working and definitely living the gamer lifestyle. So happy to be here. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, JD. And last but not least, we have Kavita.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kavita Anand, and my role is IP and Rights Management Practice Lead at Quest. We are the world's leading media and entertainment-focused end-to-end technology enabling consulting firm. And we specialize in strategy and implementation of leading tools across the media supply chain, including our partners tool for this call, Fidel.
Great. Thank you, everyone, and welcome. So let's set the stage for our audience today. Kavita, if you could take this first question, could you tell us what you mean when you say IP and rights management for digital gaming?
Yeah, absolutely. So at its simplest definition, IP is what you have and rights management is keeping track of what you can do with it. So IP could include originally created content and concepts or acquired brands and concepts. And rights management could include, if it was acquired, what rights are available for exploiting or what are still available for exploitation. And if it's an original concept, then it's more about what rights have been exploited and are there any restrictions currently in place or that we want to impose on the IP. And how it relates to the digital gaming industry particularly is, branding and IP really applies to all industries. But one thing about the digital gaming industry is that the brand is the game, but it's also the characters. And there are universes and fan bases created around these characters that are very unique to this industry. And in my opinion, this opens up a lot of opportunity for exploiting the IP in creative and innovative ways. And so whether it's originally created content or licensed in a particular brand, it's important to know what rights you have and those you can exploit. And that's really where the rights management piece of this comes in.
Okay, that's perfect. And I liked how you brought up universes and characters. We'll go into some examples in our session today for that. So for digital gaming companies that have core opportunities locked in for their rights management, what are some typical systems or maybe functions that they have in place? JD, could you take this next one?
Yeah, sure thing, Vivian. Look, I want to sort of set the stage here that I think we can all agree that licensing and rights management, when it comes to managing your business, isn't exactly on the top of everybody's mind. However, when companies stop looking at rights and royalty management systems as some sort of silent back office application or platform and start to bring it to the forefront of their business strategy, they immediately start seeing potential growth for rapid revenue, as well as additional opportunities that might have been previously underutilized historically. So companies that they have an intellectual property management system in place, they tend to have a greater opportunity to tap into those revenue streams that might not have been previously acknowledged. Some increased opportunities where they're going to really kind of find the ability to jump into those are going to be things related to really investing in original content or new licensed in content, original content related to things like characters, storylines, or entirely new brands. And what really helps drive a lot of this revenue growth opportunity that exists is once you recognize what you have available to you to use, you can then start to really invest it in new and innovative ways, whether you are adapting it to new technology, for example, like augmented reality, virtual reality, or even subscription cloud gaming services. But that being said, it's not just the ability of recognizing new revenue opportunities, but also being able to identify potential pitfalls and risks that you might be facing as the licensing side of your business continues to grow. With a robust intellectual property management application or platform, companies have a higher degree of confidence in being able to be compliant as it pertains to their pre-existing licensing commitments. As a result of that, they're able to have a more precise and accurate forecasting capability, and they're able to really kind of scale and meet the growing market demands as it comes to that licensing portion. And as it really comes to the pitfalls, I want to really focus on this one particular note, is that there is an unduly amount of risk that could be that you as a business could be facing within that space as your licensing business grows. And as a result of that, you could be facing things like audits based off of your previous licensing commitments. And audits, they're painful, they're costly, and ultimately they will inevitably disrupt your business operations. So it's always best to have some sort of product in place that's going to help reduce the risk of that audit. So yeah, I mean, that's first and foremost, I'd say the first thing that comes to mind.
Thank you, JD. And I know our clients are always wanting to make more informed decisions, and there was a lot of things that they have to consider what you just talked through in terms of the storylines, the characters, new technologies or platforms that they maybe could explore. So as companies start to think about implementing a new system to manage their rights, what are some key considerations that they should plan for when starting this initiative? Karen, if you could take this one.
Sure, Vivian. When considering the implementation of a new rights management system, there are several factors that come into play. First, companies should consider the importance of visibility. A robust rights management system should provide companies with a clear view of their game's assets along with their associated rights. It's like having a treasure map in front of you that shows you where all of your precious gems are buried. With the right granularity and taxonomy, companies can really categorize and organize their assets efficiently, making it easier to manage and exploit their assets more effectively. And speaking of exploit, that's where the real magic happens. And it gives companies who have a rights management system a major advantage. The advantage is that it allows companies to uncover hidden opportunities within their assets that can be monetized or leveraged for strategic purposes. It's like discovering hidden gems in your own backyard. Transparency to the data is also very important because it's like having a map showing where a company has been, where they are, and where they're going. It enables them to really identify their rights that are being underutilized. And once companies are able to identify this, they're able to expand and see the full spectrum of possibilities and opportunities within their intellectual property. I also don't want to forget about scale and support. As companies continue to grow their business, they need to have a rights management system that will grow with them to ensure the handling of increasing volumes of data and transactions. I like to think of it as having a foundation strong enough to support a skyscraper. A well thought out rights management system is not just a tool, it's the backbone that supports a company's growth and development by protecting and monetizing the company's intellectual property. With an IP management system such as Fidel's IPM suite, companies can navigate the intricacies of IP management and seize on increased opportunities for their business.
I love that example of the treasure map and the hidden gems. I'm sure those in the audience from the gaming industry can relate to that too. And actually, it's a great lead into our next topic where we want to talk about the capability model. Kavita, I know you've talked about the capability model before as part of the Quest practice. Is that something that you can walk us through now?
Yeah, absolutely, Vivian. So let's talk a little bit about that scalability and growth that Karen was just talking about. And this is more what does it look like from behind the scenes and from a technology perspective. So at Quest, we've developed this rights management capability model, as Vivian said. And what we've seen is that companies start off with rights management looking very much like an administrative function. And for growth and scalability, what a company wants to do is become really IP driven and evolve into rights management as a core capability. So you kind of see that path on the bottom there. So at first, we see that IP and rights are tracked in usually trackers, right? So there's manual data tracking, there's manual processes. And the first thing that people start doing is maybe putting it into a system, right? So a little bit of automation of the rights management, maybe just putting it into some system, but it's very siloed amongst the business units. So that's your first rights management as an administrative function. In the next stage, wait for it to appear. This is where you start seeing, so maybe there are siloed systems and some systems in different business units that are keeping track of IP or maybe the payments or rights. And this is where companies start to feel the need for an enterprise rights management system. So this is the stage at which there's more consolidation and unification of the IP and rights management across the company. And you start to see a little bit more of that franchise or brand view of IP utilization, right? So the availability of exploitation becomes a little more clear. There's more visibility across the groups, across the company. And so you can do things like measure your ROI. So that's when you have an enterprise rights management system. As you go further into the next stage, now that you have your foundational system that has all the rights available, you can start integrating it across your ecosystem, if you will, whether it's a product approval system, a DAM and MAM system, et cetera, financials. And what that enables is that sort of automates those other peripheral manual processes that you might have in place, and the whole ecosystem now becomes automated, and it's all based on all of this accurate enterprise rights management because all the data is in there. Once you have a fully integrated system, in the next stage is where we can start seeing that data and analytics is possible, right? So this is where those opportunities, those hidden gems that Karen was talking about, become a lot more visible because you have the ability to see where is this IP exploited and where are still some opportunities. What's that white space that I can still maybe look into exploiting and selling. So again, as Karen said, and I think JD also alluded to this, if earlier in the capability model, we put due diligence into the taxonomy and hierarchy at the right level and granularity, not only do you have visibility of the rights and where they're being utilized already, but it becomes a foundation upon which you can build that skyscraper that Karen was just talking about, right? So and also becomes a platform for you to integrate with for all the systems that need rights data. So again, what what enables this really is a system in which you can handle rights in and rights out, as well as availabilities, so that you can see your white space, and also to mitigate any rights-related risks, as JD mentions, because sometimes those catch companies by surprise because they're not all in one place and the data is not visible in one place.
Great overview, Kavita. Thank you for walking us through the details of each of the different stages. So, JD, the next question is for you. I'm sure many people could relate to what Kavita just said about the offline processes, manual Excel trackers. JD, earlier in the call, you had touched upon how companies maybe are not always thinking about rights always thinking about rights. Could you walk us through what the early stages typically look like for digital gaming companies?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take I'll call it an extreme example, and that's a successful independent developer. His name is Eric Barron, also known as Concerned Ape. He is a individual developer and self-publisher of probably one of the most successful indie games that has ever been created. The game is called Stardew Valley. It's got tens of millions of sales in terms of units sold, and I believe as of last year had reached over $300 million in general revenue. So pretty impressive, but it is an extreme case, but he would certainly most likely fall within that first half. But obviously not every single developer and publisher is going to fall within that extreme case, but they'll still meet within that early version of the capability model. A good example of a publisher that really specializes in indie development and publishment is a company called Devolver Digital. By partnering with a publisher that knows that space in particular, developers are able to really work within that system, where they can start to leverage existing licensing infrastructure. They're empowered to make better deals, whether they are for just general publish across multiple platforms, or if it's for something as specific as a subscription-based licensing model, to sort of generate and grow their own audience. Or in the case of an example that comes to mind, a game called Cult of the Lamb, who is also published by Devolver Digital. There was a company that had actually structured a payment to ensure that they did not end up on a subscription service. So there's a lot more empowerment when you actually work within that early stage capability model, but you're partnering with the right people. What ultimately is really important to keep in mind, regardless of the company size, is the overall ability to understand the scope and priority of your licensing options as they become available to you. And by having that clear understanding, that clear picture of the licensing capabilities, you're able to identify not just the existing value, but really the potential future value as it pertains to your overall business as well.
Very well said. And so if we think about the middle stages of the capability model and where we were looking at the enterprise rights, these companies are now able to be a bit more creative in how they're monetizing their IP and their business. Karen, could you walk us through an example here?
Of course. And yes, most companies are in the middle stage as it relates to the capability model for enterprise rights. Specifically related to the gaming industry, there is one standout company who is a client of ours, but will keep their name anonymous, but wanted to share their story on how they've been able to monetize on their IP. This company really wanted to transform themselves from not only being a video game creator, but they wanted to be a global innovator, delivering on all forms of entertainment. As part of this company's expansion, their key strategy was to leverage their fan favorite titles in creative new ways, such as an increase in more localization by licensing out their IP from game music to brands to characters across various channels, such as movies, themed restaurants, live events, etc. This company was able to really reap the promotional benefits, and as a result, they were able to capitalize significantly on new revenue streams. This company selected Fidel's IP rights management system because our system provided them with the features and capabilities they were looking for: contract management, automation of their rights and royalty management processes, integration with their ERP systems, just to name a few. With the use of the Fidel system, this company was able to gain better analytics, such as they were able to determine whether the royalty rates seemed too high or too low, whether a market segment might be primed to go after, whether new licensees would be ideal to target, whether a deal can be better negotiated for a higher return. Overall, Fidel was able to really empower this company by strengthening their financial processes. And by doing so, most importantly, this company was able to optimize on their IP license revenue accordingly.
I really like hearing that story, and especially learning about how Fidel's IPM system really helped your client grow their business. I'm sure there's folks in our audience that can relate to a need for rights management integration with their ERP or better analytics. And it ties into what Kavita was even saying earlier with the white space opportunities that clients can tap into. JD, for you, are there other examples of companies at the enterprise stage?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at a few examples, starting with probably the most prolific within the space as it relates to this year, and that's Activision Blizzard King. They were recently acquired by Microsoft in one of the largest industry acquisitions in history, to the tune of about $70 billion. And leading up to that, Activision in particular, they had formed a lot of really strategic partnerships. I have no doubt in my mind that they are those strategic partnerships was absolutely taken into consideration during the overall review phase of that acquisition by Microsoft. One of the flagship games that they have, I mean, it's notorious. It's Call of Duty, and they've been creating brand partnerships for years that have allowed them to create things like in-game playable avatars, with some of the most recent additions being celebrities like Nicki Minaj, Kevin Durant, Snoop Dogg, Neymar, Messi, just to name a few. And they've been doing this for I mean, near on a decade, I'd say at this point, maybe even longer. And they're able to take these celebrity avatars, and they actually monetize them in microtransactions that they sell back to the players. So very, very strategic in their end. Another example of licensing that's happening at an enterprise level, I would say, is an area that is typically or more often than not overlooked, and it's actually music licensing into games. And one of the companies that comes to mind to me is Electronic Arts, and specifically their sports division. So EA Sports, they've pretty much cornered the market when it comes to creating really playable experiences, being able to play as your favorite player or your favorite team. But within that, they have a soundtrack that's always embedded into the game. And so there's a lot of complexity that comes to managing the music rights associated to that. But EA, they're able to manage that and navigate that. And furthermore, they're able to actually monetize that. This year, they're actually selling the Madden NFL 24 official soundtrack. So they're absolutely operating at that enterprise level. And I'd say lastly, one company for me anyway that really stands out is a company who was also acquired, I believe it was last year, by Sony, and that is Bungie. So their mainstream games, I mean, they're historically known for the Halo franchise, and more recently Destiny and Destiny 2. And what they do from a licensing perspective, how they're operating at, is, I think, a really good example of just how far-reaching your licensing opportunities can go. They're creating lore grimoire books that they're publishing, collectible figurines, playable cards, cups, t-shirts, boots, stuffed plushies, stickers, pins. I mean, they're even taking all of their original content and original characters, and they're turning some of these characters into rubber duckies. So I mean, the possibilities when you're curious as to what kind of possibilities are available to you from a licensing perspective, Bungie is a good example to look at, especially in that enterprise space, and it just continues to go on and on and on.
Thank you for walking us through that. There's so many aspects to think of when you think about licensing: music, talent likeness, creating new products, like you just mentioned, that a company needs to consider. So if we could go back to the capability model, Kavita, if we think about that last stage, what does it mean to be advanced? What does it mean to be that VR headset that I see?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm listening to the stories that Karen and JD are telling, and really, if you think about it, the lines get blurred a little bit between those last two stages because once you have that rights management ecosystem and you start having that visibility to all the data, you really rocket ship into that next stage, if you will, right? So one thing we know for sure is that there's a lot of passion in the digital gaming industry. So not only are original content creators passionate about their IP, but the fans are highly passionate about all of their favorite games, right? They play it themselves. They watch others playing it. They buy logo merchandise. So that last stage is where you can really start thinking innovatively about how you can channel that passion and of course how you can monetize in new ways, whether it's diversifying revenue streams as both of you mentioned, or is the fandom and love of our characters enough that we can maybe grow it? Can we look at the psychographic of our audience and combine it with another brand or talent, as JD was talking about, and increase the customer base? So these are the types of questions you can ask of your data and do some analytics to answer those questions, right? Can music or other IP that has been licensed in be monetized in some other ways? Can we do T-shirts or even rubber duckies, as JD was saying, right? And then lastly, of course, as the digital gaming world and technology itself is evolving, you can also start looking at, are there new technologies that can be used to exploit IP in some other way? So again, rights management, if you have that foundation, those two last stages become a little blurred because once that transparency and visibility is there, you're able to really spend all of the energy innovating, which is, of course, what the gaming industry does best.
Exactly. And loved how you touch upon the passion and the need and ability to diversify people's customer base, whether it's different products or different channels, TVs and movies even. So now that we've gone through the details of the capability model, I also want to talk through managing all your licensing in a single platform. JD, can you walk us through what it looks like from a Fidel perspective?
Yeah, absolutely, Vivian. So really, the core here within certainly within a Fidel perspective is having a platform that's going to not only manage your licensing in commitment, so where you are taking content that somebody else has generated or owns from an intellectual property standpoint and bringing it into your platform and managing the specific commitments and the specific rights associated to that, but also finding a way on the same platform to actually license that material, license that content out for additional revenue opportunities. So being able to recognize that full flow and know that it's not just that one direction, but it also has to come back, where you're able to manage not only the license out that has gone to your partner, but also the revenue that's being reported back into you that you then need to report back to the original IP owner, whoever it is that you've licensed the initial content in from. So an example here we have on the screen is, character. I think we all know that character very well, being put onto, they're licensed in that property, and they're being put onto T-shirts, stackable bricks, publishing material, whatever it might be. And then again, there's that one direction out, and then it has to come back in and flow through. So having a single platform that's going to really help you manage all that goes a really long way versus having a fragmented architecture.
Thank you, JD. And I really couldn't agree more. When we work with different companies that have two different systems for their rights in and rights out, it becomes very difficult. And a lot of effort is really just put into the wrong place, whether it's maintenance or trying to just sync up your information so you can understand what are your true rights availability and then what are your true white space opportunities. So to wrap us up for today, we went through some general terminology at the beginning, walked through the capability model, and then talked through how you can manage all your licensing in a single platform. I want to first just acknowledge and apologize for the LinkedIn error at the beginning of the call, but this video is being recorded and we'll post the video after the webinar. We'll just take a look at one question that we saw flow in before we wrap up. So the question is, what are common challenges I should be aware of when building out my company's rights ecosystem?
Right. I can take this, Vivian, and maybe JD and Karen could add to it if they want to. So I think the first thing is that when you're building out a rights ecosystem, you want to build for growth, right? So you want to build for growth, whether it's the rights tree that you're looking at, how do you define your rights? You want to make sure that's scalable and it's not going to corner you or limit you in any way, or whether it's the system itself. You want to make sure the system itself is scalable. And also, of course, like we were just talking about, probably plan for rights in and rights out being in the same system, because otherwise, if you availability, otherwise the opportunity becomes very difficult to decipher if they're in two different systems, as we were just talking about. And then so first is make sure you're aiming for growth, and then the second is the challenges, right? So the challenges, where we find the challenges typically is alignment across the company. So making sure that all of your groups, whether it's legal or finance or operations, everyone is aligned in terms of what rights we sell, what rights we acquire, how we want to report on them, right? So that just defining of that rights tree becomes really important up front, the granularity, the taxonomy. And then lastly, we always face data challenges. So just kind of making sure that as you're entering into this, that you know where all your data is, because it all needs to get into a rights management system. And typically, that is the most difficult part of a rights management system, because in order to have accuracy, you need to have that data in there. So that's what I can think of. Karen, JD, anything to add?
From my perspective, Kavita, you summed it up very nicely. I mean, those are the main points that we touched upon within our panel discussion today, and I think you did a good job on that.
Thanks.
Agreed.
I'm seeing in the chat that it looks like we have time for one more question, so I'll throw out one more question out there. If you could share some specific tools or features, maybe even in the IPM suite, that can support the implementation for a new rights management platform.
I can take that, or Karen, it's I'll toss it to you if you want to jump in there. But definitely some tools that come to mind in the Fidel's IPM suite management application would be deal management specifically, the ability to really recognize and structure your rights and your various licensing contracts in a place that is easily visible, it's reportable. I mean, it really goes a long way. So having that capability, absolutely. Things like validation checks on the rights data and how it pairs with your sales data to see if you are at risk of being out of compliance on your reporting, if you're reporting out various financial obligations to your licensors, or if you're dealing with validating sales and royalty data as it's being reported back to you from any of your partners. It really goes a long way. So having that structure first and foremost within the deal management application is going to really start to help you solidify a foundation that you can then build off of and really have a lot more, I'll say, streamlined processes downstream for sure. Karen, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I mean, the one thing I would add is, setting up your rights tree, and really at the beginning, that's really the foundation, right? That drives everything within a system, especially within a rights management system. So taking the time and the due diligence up front to really identify the various levels and the various attributes that go into your rights tree is very, very important.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you all, and I'm going to close this out. So to learn more about Quest and our services, please scan the QR code or reach out to us directly. To learn more about Fidel, you can visit their website or find them at Fidel on LinkedIn. Thank you to all of our panelists for joining us today. If you missed the webinar or want to share or rewatch, it will be up on our YouTube channel shortly. We want to thank everyone for tuning in whichever time zone you tuned in at, and stay tuned for more LinkedIn Lives to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.